Take a Ride podcast. I'm your host here, Starks. You can find me on my Twitter handle. It's at Starks_industry. You can also find me on Instagram, One Closing Hero. I'm not here alone this evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you may be in the fantasy world. I have the combo guard running the two, Jacob, the White Knight. How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing well, brother. Just to get off topic, I was bummed that Steven Strasburg was signed today by the Nationals. I was hoping that my Dodgers would scoop him up, but hey, man, like life goes on, right?
Oh man, yeah, he did. How long was that contract for?
Oh man, I think it was like 7 years, $245 million. I think it's a record before Garrett Cole signs here soon. Crazy.
Ooh, that's a big contract. That's a monster contract for a pitcher for sure. Them MLB players definitely get paid the good bucks there, man.
Oh yeah.
All right. Not only Jacob, but we have the wingman running the three, LT the Sage. How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing good, brothers. I'm doing good. I don't have a baseball, no, none of that. But I am ready.
Yeah, you do.
For some basketball. It's my favorite sport. I like the way the ball goes up and down the court. So I'm ready. Let's go.
Ooh.
What?
Let's go.
You know what? You know. I'm gonna bring it back, LT.
No.
Go ahead and bring it back.
Oh yes, the villain in glasses. The villain. Yes.
Yeah. It's sad. I got to tell the listeners. A lot of people just was wanting me to be this bad guy per se over in leagues when it came to trades and stuff like that. I try to be the good guy for about a year and some change, and I gave you guys examples of help, and I'm still going to help you. I'll be the villain in glasses. I'll give you guys what you want, but I'll be a little bit more on the nicer side of things. So in this episode in particular, what we're going to talk about is obviously we're going to talk about some recent news. That's going to be the first quarter. Then the second quarter, I wanted to help a listener out that had mentioned if you're bad, if you're low in the standings, what would it take to get back in the playoffs? And we'll kind of dive into some questions in a dynasty redraft and points format. At the same time, we will transition to some of our specialties and our weaknesses in the third quarter. Fourth quarter, we'll kind of tie it up with a clutch shot. We could probably touch up on some recent games that are going on towards the end of the podcast. So with that being said, before I even take the ride here, make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel there, Sub-Zero style. Hit that bell. It's dinner time. Comment below. Make sure that you hit the thumbs up on the YouTube channel that LT is putting the hard work on. Also, Take a Ride podcast. Make sure you subscribe. Tell your friends. Tell your family. Help us out. Jacob has his article for the streams this week. Definitely look it out. Look it out. Check it out. It's going to definitely be helpful. Yeah. We have the Christmas articles for you guys in the future. Man, this article is fire. I'll be honest with you guys because this is something I utilize in a new life fantasy team. I'm sure that LT utilizes as well too. And it could be helped to get you the punch of that beautiful list that Jacob put together along with the article with the waiver wire picks. And he even has the top 100 players within that last week prior to as Jacob has says, ride the wave because those type of players can help you, give you that boost for the week. All right. So with that being said, officially, I'm ready to take people on for a ride. I'll pass you the ball there, Jacob.
Thank you there, brother. I appreciate the kind words. Yeah. So for the start of the first quarter here, we're going to go to recent news. And the most recent news here is that Gordon Hayward, he is starting tonight. He was expected to miss a full 6 weeks, but he actually beat that timeline by 2 weeks. So good on all of you if you were able to either buy him low or if you're able to stash him. I mean, like you got an early Christmas present there. So I'm going to pass the ball to you there, Starks. Do you see this shaking up the roster in Boston, or do you think it's just going to be a seamless transition with him coming back? What do you think?
I think it's going to be I think it'll be a seamless transition. I think at the same time, they're going to ease him back into the games. Even if he comes off the bench or if he starts, they're not going to give him a whole lot of minutes out the gate. At least I don't think so. But, this is LT's boy. And it's funny. It's like he was a turncoat on him. He was once a G-Hay guy. He always speaks of League of Legends, right? And hopefully LT is feeling a little bit better about G-Hay these days. I know he was eating crow, but hopefully G-Hay is going to be all right. I mean, it was just a hand injury, correct? Was that right, Jacob, from what I remember?
Yes. So yeah. It was a fractured hand. So, it had nothing to do with his lower legs. So you would assume that he would just come back and ready to pounce, right?
Right. So obviously he's going to be, I think honestly, now that I'm kind of thinking about it and how you said it, and I'm convincing myself, I think it'll be a seamless transition, but I'll pass you the ball. LT, what's your thoughts on your boy G-Hay, man, after you gave him the hard work?
Yeah, man. So what I will like to let listeners know is that League of Legends, G-Hay, I'm back in your corner, brother. Hey, welcome back to the league. Hey, welcome back to the starting lineup. What I do want to just mention is that he did get 26 minutes tonight, Stark. So just coming in all the way tonight, he did get 26 minutes. And he scored a decent line, nothing crazy. I mean, but you love to see him producing for your fantasy team. The good thing I will say about this, just to keep in mind, is that Jaylen Brown also still played high minutes, and so it looks like as far as them all gelling together, we're gonna have to put Boston in the Toronto Raptors category on tight rotations. I think Wanamaker is the only other person on there that went ahead and had 20 plus minutes, I believe, coming from the bench. So they're going to be having some solid rotations over there in Boston. So if you have a stock in any of those players, yes, the thesis is one of them. I know you're smiling from ear to ear, but that's all I got, brothers. Back to you, White Knight.
Right on. We'll keep it rolling. So also who makes their return tonight is Ja Morant. The Grizzlies had labeled him week to week, but apparently that only means that he's going to miss 1 week. So all he missed was 1 week. So all of that worry and stuff was for naught. So he returns tonight. So all of you owners who picked up Tyus Jones and Melton, I mean, I'd say you can go ahead and drop him, at least see what tonight's game brings. But it is his back, so I can definitely see the Grizzlies playing it safe. But I'll pass the ball back there to LT right there, right behind my back there to you, LT. What do you think? What do you think of the backcourt in Memphis right now? Do you think Ja's going to go back to being Ja?
Yeah, I do. Basically, he was having back spasms, as our listeners can see. So if he's good to go, then usually that, wasn't like a leg or arm or hand or anything injury. So it was just back spasms. So basically pain management, right? So if he can go ahead and get through that pain management, if he's good enough to go, he should be good. I think he's going to come back and probably get about 30 minutes tonight automatically, usually. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm glad to see him back. I actually have him in one of my fantasy leagues. So good to have Ja Rule back in the fold. Over to you, Starks.
Ja Rule indeed. Yeah, I'll just say this in a dynasty format. I think we're all in agreement. I know me and LT was talking about Ja Morant this year, earlier this season. I think he's going to be the potential to be a top 50 player or better a lot sooner than later. I'm not going to say it this year, but he does have the potential to be even better than that in a dynasty format. So Memphis, it's crazy, right? They have the fast, I ain't going to say high octane, but they have the fast-paced offense, which is really weird this year because we remember the last few years, we're so used to Memphis being that grind and grit team. That stuff is out the window, baby. It ain't the same no more. So if they're going to go that fast, as you guys know, they're going to have a lot of opportunity with stats to accumulate, whether you're in a categories league or points league. So it is a beautiful sight if those that took the risk on Ja Morant this year, hopefully you're in a good standings if you drafted him in a redraft format, because he's going to give you a nice punch off your team. And I think what's underrated about him is his assist. So I definitely like the potential in this young man. So I'll pass you back the ball there, Jacob.
Right on, brother. So going to roll it along here to Fred VanVleet. He has a knee bruise, and he winded up missing tonight's game due to it. Now, typically, knee bruises take about 2 weeks to fully heal. Now, it sounded like Fred VanVleet almost went this game, but didn't. So I'm not sure if the Raptors are even going to play it safe here, just because they want him and they need him out there. So perhaps it might be a pain tolerance thing. So, but I just think it could affect him here if he does come back too early. And I think it's Norman Powell's season. That's just me personally. He did get the start tonight. I'm curious how he's going to do tonight. We'll definitely check up on that later. But I definitely said that Powell was one of my top waiver ads this week. And with this news, it makes that case even stronger. Now I'm going to pass the ball. I'm going to pass the ball to you there, Starks, and let me know, do you think Powell becomes a must-own, or do you think if this isn't too serious? What do you think about that?
I don't think he's a must-own player. I mean, obviously, if you're in a very deep format, but I'm just going to assume for those that are in a 10 to 12-man league, he's not a must-add regardless. Now, the thing about Norman Powell is, even in the article that I wrote about selling high like hotcakes, he was one of the guys I think that I had on the article. I had like 8 players potentially on that article, and he basically scratched the surface there because the thing about him is he's all about threes and points. About anything else in particular that he does is nothing else, right? So even if he gets the minutes, he's going to be an inconsistent 3 points and point specialist, and that's something that I can't consider a must-own player. But the thing is, that's that interesting article. So you guys, check that out on New Life Fantasy. It's getting a lot of views there, in particular. But Norman Powell, to get off that ISO, I don't think he's considered a must own. But I'll give you a fast chest pass there, LT. What's your thoughts on Norman Powell?
I caught that chest pass pretty well, man. Just for the listeners to know, me and Starks have actually been on the court with one another before. So we've actually we literally have ran the 1 and 3 on the basketball court with each other. So just want to let you know it's not we're not joking around here. Norman Powell. So I don't know, Starks. I actually disagree with you. I do think he's a must-own player.
Yes. Listen, no, I'm good. I'm glad. Go ahead, man. Go ahead. I'm ready. Go ahead.
I do think he's a must-own player the reason why he's a must-own player is because just for the fact of you guys, you guys were hammering me on my Lowry prediction earlier in the year, but because of what you guys stated, how ouchy Lowry is, now we have Van Vliet. I thought he was an Iron Man, but now he has a knee bruise. So now these guys got ouchies, and the only person who's going to be picking up time, who gets time whether they're on the court or not, is Norman Powell. So he's just going to pick up more time if these guys have any load management. If they have any time away, Norman Powell picks that time up. And I feel like he's older than Lowry. No, well, not older than Lowry, but for some odd reason, I feel like Powell is older, and he's still playing all these crazy minutes. So I think he's a must-own, definitely in 12-man, definitely in redraft formats. If you're in a 12-man league, you can have Norman Powell on your team. And be absolutely okay with holding him. So that's my take.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the ball from you and steal the ball from you.
Okay.
Right. I'm glad. I'm finally glad. This is the gloves will be off for the next segment because as you guys know, LLT, as you know for sure, the villain in glasses. I mean, I don't really hold back, right? And so I'll say he said, "Oh wow." Listen, Norman Powell. So he's a must own in a 12-man league, is what you say to the listeners. I can't see that because if he's a must own, what is he? Obviously, what I just said, but what makes him a must own in your eyesight? Obviously, you kind of mentioned it, but what really sticks out on your thumb to make him a must own player in a 12-man league?
So in a 12-man league, as far as on the back end of he's coming in at the back end of your bench, right? He's not a top end player, but his production and minutes consistency to me puts him into that category of a must-own player. You can actually, you can flirt around now. If there's a super hot free agent, someone gets injured for the rest of the season, and there's someone on there, I mean, of course, you can maybe pick them up for that hot free agent, but there's not a lot of consistent players you can find in the waiver wire that can consistently output the minute production, steals, and threes like Norman Powell can on a consistent night-to-night basis where you don't have to worry about whether he's going to be playing or not, going to get those minutes. Norman Powell will get those minutes, and he's proven to be getting those minutes even when those main cogs in the wheel are there.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Oh, okay.
No,
well, Well, I was going to steal. I was going to steal that ball because I agree here with LT. I actually am I'm actually. Yeah, I'm a big fan of those guys who are at the end of your bench, like LT said, who can vault your team. Like you said, Starks, he helps in 3-pointers and low-end points and low-end rebounds. He also helps you in steals, which is a scarce position, or which is a scarce stat there. But he's averaging a little over 1 steal a game, and as of late, he's been tearing it up in that category. So I definitely am a huge fan of him. I would pick him up just because of the injuries, like LT said, and he's a part of that tight rotation that Toronto likes to run. And as we saw, he's still got minutes in the mid-20s, even at full strength, which is a great sign. Now, he's not going to be extremely consistent, but I would love to have him at the end of my bench. But here, I'll pass the ball back to you there, Starks, and you make your point on that.
Thank you. I'm taking the ball. Thank you, guys. I'm glad. This is what I was waiting for you guys to side against me. This is exactly what I waited for. Thank you. Handicaps are so fun. So Norman Powell, essentially, let me put it this way. He is doing very well to back you guys up in that aspect. Right. The last 2 weeks have been a top 80 player and better. I get it. It sounds good. What you guys are selling, it sounds good. But here's where I'm going to sell you on. Right. You mentioned the 1.7 steals about a week or two, the last 2 weeks. That looks good, but it's an outlier. Let's just keep it honest. And honestly, regular season, as of right now, from my understanding, he's just barely hitting the Z score at 1 steal a game this season. He hasn't been that type of player in his career, right? And at the same time, the points that he's making, like I said, it's going to be inconsistent that you're going to get from him. Now, one thing that does hold true is the minutes are there for sure right now. Now, in the beginning of the season, I don't know if you guys remember the last couple games in the season, we didn't know if it was going to be OG Anunoby or was it going to be Norman Powell that was going to be the fixtures there on the wing or the guard there. And it was obviously OG Anunoby. OG, let's not forget, he's been kind of tailoring down a little bit. So when OG starts picking when he picks up the heat, then Norman Powell, I'm not going to say he's going to be non-existent, but he's not going to produce at this high level. And that's why I still think he's a player of he's a potential prisoner of the moment player. But what you have to respect and what you guys said is the minutes are there right now. So as far as the 3 points, and this is why I would think of a 12-man league, it's a stream spot because I can get points in 3-pointers from another player, right? The steals, this is good. Like you said, the 1.7 steals, but I just question how sustainable that is. And that's where I really disagree with both of you guys on. So I'll pass you back the ball there, Jacob. Was there any other recent news that you had there, brother?
No, that is all the recent news we have for today. So I am going to one-hand push past the ball there to LT, and I'm going to let you take over, brother.
All right. Appreciate it. So we have the second quarter, and this is going to how to improve from bottom of the rankings. We had a listener who was probably in a bad spot and interested in dig yourself out of the doghouse. How does he do it? How do we do it? And that's what we're going to be talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and jump off with my redraft thought process. And in the redraft, I'm specifically thinking about category leagues. So in a category redraft league, if you're at the bottom, you need to right away start thinking about what category am I strong in? That is the most important thing to look at. You're going to have to really take a really deep dive look at your team. If you're strong in the defensive stats area, so steals, blocks, rebounds, then you want to make trades or pickups to double down on that. If one of the worst things you can do on a fantasy sense, especially with all these injuries, is try to be good at everything, right? Especially in category leagues, it's very hard to be good at everything at once. Without villain in the glasses type trades and taking people for rides, right? So that it's hard to be good at everything. So you have to double down, look at your team, decide what you can do to really double down on those stats so you can win. Because sometimes people who are in the lead just have strong early quarters. If you can figure out a way to beat someone in steals and blocks every week, then those are categories you can always pack in. And then threes, you can really get a feel for players and trades that you can make to try to bolster those specific positions. It's hard, especially if you're running into injuries, right? Because then you don't have enough players. Pieces on the chessboard to play. So injuries are the worst when it comes to those. If you aren't dealing with injuries, you have an ability to come back. That's all. You always have ability to come back in the season. That is. Second thing, real quick, cheat code. Go ahead and put in that Akuma Death Step. Aggressive waiver management. This is my last state. Look in the waiver wire. Be aggressive on players that have the potential to get to 25 plus minutes, or coming in for an injured player, or even in Stark's case, those dynasty players. Keep an eye out on those dynasty players. Maybe they become more than dynasty players in that season. Keep an eye on them. Look at their trends. If you're in the behind, you're gonna have to look at those clippings, those newspaper clippings as well. You're gonna have to. It's gonna be a hard trek up, but it's possible. So that's my thought process on it. I'm going to go ahead and pass the rock over to the White Knight. What's your thoughts in the points draft, man?
Thank you, brother. Yeah, so from a points league perspective, I'm going to take you behind the curtain here. I am in 2 points leagues. One, I'm in second place, and then the other, the listener league that we're all in, I am also at the bottom here. So I feel for that listener.
Not the White Knight.
Yeah, so I'm going to take you guys behind the curtain here. I have 3 players that are injured and DeAndre Ayton. So automatically, I can put 2 of the injured guys on my IL spot. But now I have Ayton and the other injured player. So that leaves me 2 men down every single week, which in a points league is near impossible to try to win, just because your opponent has either 7 or 8 games on you every single week. So it's up to you as a owner. Are you going to try to trade for pennies just so that you can get those extra games and win now? Or are you just going to take those brunt losses? As you can see, I'm 2-5 here, just because it's so hard to win when you're 2 men down. But I'm taking the strategy here. I am going to trust that Oladipo is going to come back. De'Aaron Fox is going to come back. Bagley's going to come back, and Ayton's going to come back. And they're going to carry me, and I'm going to, hoping, but I've done the strategy before. And I just start to win out, because all you have to do is make the playoffs. As you're struggling here with all of your players hurt and a suspended player, you just have to score as much as you humanly possibly can, even if you don't win, because it could come down to points at the last week, whether you're going to make that last playoff spot, because all you have to do is make the playoffs and anything can happen. This happened last year. I told you, Starks, I went undefeated in 1 points league. In the other points league, I got second place, but I barely made the playoffs because I was going through the same thing. I had too many injured players, but I trusted myself to just get as many points as possible. I snuck into the playoffs, and then I ran the table until I lost in the championship game. But if you are dealing with injuries and that's why you're losing, you need to be proactive on the streaming waiver wire and just cut bait on those players who only have 2 games. This week, I cut bait on Tim Hardaway Jr., who only has 2 games, and I cut bait on Carmelo Anthony, who only has 2 games. For players like Cody Zeller, who has 4 games, and Chris Dunn, who has 4 games. You have to do that. You have to gain as many points as possible before, so that you can at least survive when you get all of your players back. Now, it's not a perfect science. Other players can get hurt, but that's just a strategy I'm taking. Get as many points as possible and try to just keep your head above water until your players come back. And that's a strategy I have for points league. It's basically, and if you aren't dealing with injuries and you are just struggling, even with a fully healthy team, then really quick, I would look to try to do like a 3-for-1 trade and then stream like crazy. Like streaming is your best friend. So that is my advice for you guys in a points league. Now, I'm going to pass the ball to you there, Starks. You're running up court, I can see, and I got you the ball there, brother. What are your thoughts on this?
That's good, guys. That was a nice breakdown from both of y'all. I'll say this real quick. Can you guys hear me? I'm having some bad reception here.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay, so I feel like LT took a page out of my book, but maybe he didn't, because LT's one of the originals that got me into fantasy in particular. So he probably didn't take a page out of my book. So let me say it like this. I think, and obviously you, Jacob, streaming is very important in grabbing players in the waiver wire. That's really important. So in a dynasty format, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, it's a little bit tougher, right? Because you have a team that, whether you're injured or whatnot, you're kind of stuck in a way. And it's a really difficult situation to make the ads. But to kind of jump into the logic of a redraft and points before I get to the dynasty look of the logic of things, the redraft format is, I think it's obviously, it may touch up on some of the questions that are coming up. Is, I'll say this: don't give up, because when you give up, I mean, just because you're in a bad situation doesn't necessarily mean you can't make it. And just like what Jacob said, you just want to do the best you can to keep your head above water, because you don't know what the outcome is going to be in the future for the next week or so. Anything can change on a dime, especially look at all these injuries that's happened. You don't know who the next team may get an injury, and one of your injured players might be coming back soon, kind of like how G. just started here tonight, right? So you got to deal with it. It's unfortunate. But one thing that I think is important is, I'm going to juice the orange a little bit on the waiver wire and streams again, is you need to have someone in a redraft and points league. I think you need to have someone that is essentially a player that you can at least get accustomed to streaming that spot. Obviously you want to have the best team, but let me say it like this. This kind of reminds me of, in the redraft league that LT won the first year. I'm going to talk about that. LT won the first year and I was undefeated. I'm sure you probably remember that season, LT, and then I lost in the playoffs.
Oh, I remember.
So, I bet you do. I bet you do.
Is that the John Wall? Is that the John Wall year?
Man, that was the John Wall and Jeff Green year.
John Wall.
Jeff Green.
Jeff Green. Oh my gosh, he dropped like 40 points in one of those games. But anyways,
go ahead.
That what I learned from that year was, regardless, like I was a rookie that year, but I learned a lot that year, right? I got maybe too comfortable, right? And I know listeners heard this story a million times, but I'll break it down in a little bit different way. But it broke me, because like I had an undefeated season, went in the playoffs, had a bye week, took the L the next week. This is what happened. I wasn't proactive in the free agency, in the waiver wire. And that's where you can lose your hand on the steering wheel, because you think you have this superstar team. And what people forget is, someone like LeBron James could have load management. Obviously, load management is for real. There's no dodging that now, right? But back then, there was a little bit of load management then. But just imagine the load management now, right? So anybody, honestly, regardless of how strong your team is, can come up and rise from the ashes. So what I'm saying is, I had someone like maybe on that redraft league, after you're taking people for rides, when you take people for rides, it can actually hurt you in reverse, because what if that player, you're waiting for them to start, but then you've realized they're injured or they're on load management and you can't drop them, but actually you probably should. And what I learned from is, just because a player's a star in the redraft format, you got to cut bait, because you're in the playoffs and you got to make moves. You can't have empty stats that week. You have to have any type of stats. I'm not saying just grab a scrub, but you need to add someone that is going to do well for you, whether it's in a points format, whether it's in a redraft format, for that category that you need, kind of like what LT said. If you're in a category league and you need those steals and blocks for that week, then you need to go ahead and do it. But I will share a cheat code. And probably when we get to episode 200, I'm going to give an ultimate cheat code that a lot of experts don't talk about. And they know about it. They may have shared it, but I don't think a lot of experts show. And I don't. So let me go on this ISO real quick to give you the idea on what I'm trying to say. The ultimate cheat code, I'm not going to share it yet. But one of the things that a lot of people don't talk about is obviously you look at the teams. But the thing is, you look at teams, but there's another inkling that people don't say about the teams, right? You can check and utilize something, but like I said, I'll save it for episode 200 whenever we hit that. But anyways, one thing that's important is what LT kind of mentioned, but I'll elaborate a little bit deeper is look at the weakness of a team, right? So just because your team is weak at a category, check out what their weakness is. Look at their team, look at their squad. If they're not the strongest in blocks, go ahead and stream blocks that week. Every little stat counts, and that's what matters at the end to get you that win. You might have to take a risk and drop a potential star on your team, right? If they say, okay, this player is going to be out maybe the next couple days, and you're in the redraft format, then you got to cut bait. I'm sorry. Dynasty format, I'm sorry I went on this ISO. Dynasty format real quick, it's harder. You're kind of stuck. I'm going to be honest. There's no way around it unless you do trades. But I'll elaborate a little bit deeper in it because I went too far in that question. I apologize. So, LT, I'll pass you back the ball on those other questions there, man.
No, you're good. You're good. I wanted to just elaborate on that, man. What Stark said is completely 100% true. I remember that year vividly.
I bet you do.
I do. Now, I got a trade off that year that helped me propel me to become to win the finals. But the only team that probably could have stopped me and beat me was Starks' team, right? And Starks' team, after a bye, he ended up going. I forgot. Was it Abe? He might have went up against Abe. I forget who.
Nah,
it was
another guy.
It was another guy. Okay, yeah, a random other guy. But he had Villain in the Glasses, right? He had gotten this huge, all these stars, all the stars you could think of, and they all just missed games. They missed games. They were load management, and he just didn't have the production that week. And then what hurt even more, I remember, if he would have got past that week, I remember him still starting his players. He would have won out. He would have won. Yeah. The rest of the weeks, he would have beat me or I forgot who I fought in the championship, but he would have beat us. And it was just that week. So that's just telling you have to adapt. Adaptability is the biggest thing in fantasy. When you feel like you're in a corner, have to adapt. It's just the way that it is, man. And that's what I love about fantasy basketball. Different than football is that you have to adapt. Football, you can just, whatever. You just throw people out there, pray for rain. But in basketball, if you don't adapt, you will not be successful, and that's what I love about it. But I'm going to pass. Oh, no, it's me. I'm second quarter here. Oh, go ahead, Starks.
Oh, I just want to steal the ball because you brought up another good point. Yeah. That trade that you did when I think you got John Wall in that trade, right?
Yeah, John Wall.
You know what's crazy? I remember it as it was yesterday. When you got John Wall, what a lot of people didn't understand, he started out really cold off that injury. Yeah. But you got him when he was starting cooking, right? Yeah. And what Jacob says, and this is kind of going to cheat with Jacob here, in his article, right? And the streaming article, he's got the players last week, the top 100 players. And it was was Holiday in that list, I think, Jacob?
He was number one.
Right. So listen, LT, what he did, this is something I Sharing gun LT off of this. He took some of the hotter players. Obviously, Wall wasn't producing hot until really recently. He traded John Wall when he was really hot. And that's what took him over the edge because John Wall killed it at the end of the season. He started out really bad because of the injury, but he got him when he was hot. And that's what propelled him to get to championship. So I'll pass you back the ball, LT.
Yeah, definitely. That was, I remember who I got him from too, our friend Abe. He remembers that trade vividly. It was beautiful. I almost feel like I don't think Drummond was part of that trade, but yeah, anyways, maybe Luis Scola. All right. All right. So we're going to go ahead and go into the next question. When is it time to tank my team? And so I'm going to actually pass the rock over to White Knight here. When is it time, man? When is it time to put the tank tops on and go to the Bahamas Get a little citrus drink and just sit there and just go in. Or what do you think, White Knight?
Oh boy, when is it time to tank my team? Are we talking about in a dynasty setting or a redraft?
Hey, we could do it all.
All settings.
You're the points guys. Yeah, all settings, man.
It is. I mean, in a redraft, it doesn't make any sense to tank. So I'm sorry if you. There would be no incentive to tank. I get what you're saying. It's like, oh, I'm so bad in the standings, I'm going to stop looking at my team. But I have no respect for people who do that because you are basically so. So what happens to me is that I'm usually up top or I'm top 3 or 4. And then someone stops looking at their team that's down below. Well, that guy that's ahead of me, he gets a free win that week. Mm-hmm. I can't stand that, So I definitely have a beef with those people who don't look at their teams. I get it. It's like, what's the point? I'm just going to be wasting my time. But hey, man, why don't you get that Yahoo ranking up? If you just stop looking at your team, you're going to have a terrible score on there. And what I mean is that Yahoo, every time you win, rating. the LT rating. Why do you say that, Starks? I'm going to pass the ball to you there.
Let's go ahead and let's take a look at that Yahoo ranking there. LT to save. Don't hide.
Hey man, what you talking about, man? I don't know what you're talking about. I gotta. Where's it at?
I'll pass you back the ball.
If you go to the league page and then you look on the team levels.
Hey man, hey, I think I'm ain't I bronze? No. Ain't I bronze?
Hey, hit that. Yeah, I think you're the bronze medal. Hey man, hit that versus that matchup. Versus,
there we go. Level bronze right here.
What happened, man?
Best season finish platinum 2 times. Ew, what happened to me?
I don't know.
Ew.
Yeah,
Why are they keeping track of this?
I don't think you're qualified for this podcast,
man. Why are they keeping track of this, man? I don't like it.
Go ahead, Jacob.
Oh, man,
I'll just quickly wrap. I mean, I get the temptation to not look at your team, but like my dad always says, you have to finish strong at whatever you do. So I urge you to just keep going and play spoilers. I mean, if you are in last place or second to last, then be that spoiler that spoils the seeding, that spoils, that top team. Don't let easy wins happen. Let everyone earn their wins. So that's all I got to say for that. What do you got to say about that, Starks?
I want to steal the ball real quick.
All right.
I want to steal the ball real quick. This is funny, Jacob. That's why I asked you first, because I know why this question came up. This is hilarious. All right. So there's a couple of times. There's a couple of times where it starts. So there's a couple of times, in our leagues, it's so hilarious now that I think back on it. So I've actually wore the tank top once, Jacob. Actually, so it wasn't a redraft league. It was a redraft league. I'll start my players, but it was a redraft league. But
what you?
I think I was. I was a redraft league, but it was a keeper league. So it was a keeper league, and then what ended up happening is the season wasn't going well for me, and I believe it was Paul George that year. And so I picked up Paul George in order to keep him. I wasn't going to use him, but I just picked him up so I could keep him for the next year.
Gotcha.
and then put my tank top on for the rest of the year.
Nice.
Switch my name and everything. Another funny thing that I want to talk about real quick, and then we'll get back on track, is Lewis. Lewis used to grab players play when it was the playoffs. He used to grab players from the waiver wire and hold them on his team so that people who were in the playoffs could use them and play with them.
That is hilarious. Order.
Yeah, he would hoard. He would like, yeah. If I can't win, no one wins.
That's right.
he would take players and put them on his team. Like it was so silly, man. It was some of that. I'm thinking back. Some of that stuff is so silly, man. But yeah, man. When there's like emotions in these leagues.
Right.
People get hurt. People get hurt. And Lewis was hurt. Lewis was hurt. And so he
did out of spite.
Yeah, it was definitely out of spite. And it's like he was mad. He was mad with one person, but we all had to feel it. It's the silliest. It's like the silliest thing, man. But but yeah, that's hilarious. I'm gonna pass the rock over to you, Stocks, for quarter 3, man.
Oh man. Yeah, third quarter. We're in the third quarter, right?
Yeah, third quarter.
Oh man. My freaking neck hurts off of that, man. Yo. Oh man. Yeah, that's honestly though, LT. I love that. That's how you got to play, man. I want to hold players. If I'm listen. If I'm in, that's how competitive I am. If I'm in the bottom, I don't have no chance of winning. I'm going to try to grab some waiver wire guys just because I don't want the person to really work hard, man.
Yeah, that's right, man. Earn it.
Just like what Jacob said, man. Like even if I'm like, okay, say for instance, this guy's in the middle in a pack and he's really trying to make the playoffs, and I know I have no chance to make the playoffs. I'm going to do the best I can to ruin his dream to get that championship. I really mean that, man. Because listen, that's going to make me feel good. Just like I know this fantasy football, for instance, going on this ISO. Before I get in the third quarter, sorry, listeners, man, this is just what we do. We do this for fun. But the rookie, man, LT, I know you haven't. What's his name? The kid. We call him the kid, man, and he's a real talent. Yeah. He's actually in our fantasy basketball. League. He kind of reminded me of myself, low key. He almost won the first year in the rookie league, in the redraft league, and I was trying to do the best I can to like. Of course, I'm competitive. I didn't want him to win the first year because that would have been something over me, right? And I won that year 4 years in a row in that redraft league, right? But anyways. He's got a lot of talent. He's doing well in the Listener Dynasty League too. But what was the point I was trying to make? Oh yeah, in a fantasy football league, he was like, if he would have beat me in a football league, I wouldn't have made the playoffs. I only beat him by 2 points. He reached out to me. He's like, he was nice about it. He's like, hey man, good game. I see you made it in the playoffs. Yeah. I'm like, in the back of my head, I was like, I know you. It was probably hard for you to say that because you wanted to take me out. I know you did, man, but it's okay. My pops is busting me up in both my leagues. He's giving me that humble pie again. So congrats to your pops. Yeah, man, he destroyed me in football. But anyways, getting to the third quarter, man, this has been fun. We'll go ahead and transition to the, our greatest strengths and weaknesses in the third quarter in fantasy to give you guys an idea of the style of how we play and, fantasy in particular. So, Jacob, I'll pass you the ball. What's your strengths when it comes to fantasy? And maybe you can talk about a weakness if you have one there, brother.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. Thank you. So for me, I take pride in not being like beholden to my team that I draft. Like, I don't feel a sense of loyalty. I don't draft the players that I love outside of fantasy sports. Like, I always draft the best player available. My friends over here, they always clown on me for not having the same team. Like at the end of the season, I never have the team that I draft. It's a completely different team, whether that be mostly in fantasy football and fantasy baseball. It's like I am never like, so I'm never afraid to cut bait if there is a hot free agent or if a player that I had drafted isn't living to the hype or just is having a terrible week. I'm just like, you know what? I need to move on because every week matters. If you want to make the playoffs, you can't just take a week off. You need to attack every single week and not be afraid to cut bait. Now, I'm not saying that you should cut bait too early, but I think there is like a small sample size that you shouldn't be afraid to cut bait if they're not producing and someone is producing that could produce for you in the long term. So I take pride in not being loyal to the players that I drafted at first because I want to win. Just because, my favorite player back in the day was Vince Carter. I wouldn't be afraid to trade him or to cut him if there's, if I had a chance to get someone else who's producing, over him, so that's one. Now a weakness, a big weakness this year is that I took an injured guy way too early in our points league. And I think that's one thing about me. I always try to outsmart the room, and I try to get that guy who either doesn't have a clear timetable or is hurt, and I use it as an excuse. It's like, this is my lottery ticket. I'm going to draft this guy, I'm going to stash him, and then once he comes back, I'm going to wreck the league. Well, that blew up in my face when two other guys got hurt and a guy got suspended. You just don't know what's going to happen. So you can't waste your draft capital, or sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Just be careful. But, I draft players too early that are hurt so that I can have them later and just have an all-star team. This year it didn't work for me. So I have to be careful about that moving forward. That's definitely a weakness of mine. When I see that guy on the draft board and I have a chance to draft that guy who's hurt but could come back, I'm always a sucker for that person, but I need to be more patient and just know that anything can happen. So those are my strengths and weaknesses there, Starks, I would say.
Nice. That's really good. And I was just going to say on top of that, I took you as maybe you kind of remind me of a coach of Troy. I'm sure you remember him, LT, in our leagues. He's in our league too, Jacob. I thought you were more of a consistent guy, which you are. So this was for you to say that's brand new to me because you're willing to cut bait on someone that may not produce for you for that time being when you do have to cut bait, and it makes sense. I thought for you, because the guy that I'm speaking of that's been in fantasy for years in our leagues that you're a part of now he's one of those guys that he has to have the producer that produces regardless. It's like it's hard for him to drop him. And I thought maybe that could have been your weakness, but if that's not what you do, that's good, man. Go ahead.
So I will say that in fantasy basketball, it's a little bit different for me. I was mostly speaking to fantasy football and baseball. I don't know what it is about basketball, but I would say that is more of my strategy to try to get the guy who's consistently scoring. But I still am not afraid to cut bait. But in basketball, it's a little bit different, just because we all know that basketball just is on another level, of intellectual. So I'll pass the ball there to you there, Specs.
No, that's for sure. But I'll say this. He is consistent all of the leagues that he cannot. It's hard for him to drop a player. Like if in the back of his mind, I mean, I could spitball just off topic real quick. ISO Peyton Manning, for instance, when he started dying down, he could not let him go. He would not streak Peyton Manning. He just had to start him. How Peyton Manning started to sink pretty fast in Denver there, right? So he's just like, I'm just following that production. I don't care. And that I don't care didn't get a championship. So I will pass you the ball there, LT. What is your strengths and weakness? Maybe a weakness that you have in fantasy, brother.
Oh man, Troy, man, Mr. Safe mode.
Safe. That's
safe mode.
I forgot safe mode.
When you're like your computer, you're scared that it's gonna overheat, so you turn it on in safe mode. He does that in all his fantasy leagues, literally, and it works. It's like most of the time it works because he rarely has injury issues. He's rarely having, his production's so steady. And
he has those boring players. He has no spice on his team
Aldridge, DeRozan. Like he would have both of those guys on his team. It's just
exactly
super boring guys that just get it done, man. It was, and he's annoying to play, but For sure. But I will go ahead and talk about my special gift. And I actually was happy to hear about the White Knight because I am actually the complete opposite. I put a lot of stock in my seasons on my preseason scouting, those sage eyes, and draft day flexibility for my draft. So when on draft day, a lot of my seasons are predicated on how much clippings, those newspaper clippings, me getting in there, finding out who's going to have the minutes ahead of time, who's going to have that time, that ability early on in the season, and just getting an idea of how trying to predict. And that's what the Sage Eyes are about, is to predict the future, right? So that's what I'm trying to do, predict what players are going to have breakout seasons, who's going to take the next steps. All those things can be had with clippings and kind of, understanding where players are going earlier on in the season. That's usually my strong point. I can usually predict a player taking the next step or taking a step back early on before other owners figure that out. And so that's one of my strengths. And then on draft day itself, a lot of times when a lot of owners come in with one, okay, I'm gonna get this player, but you don't get to know your draft position until 30 minutes before the draft, right? Unless if you're in those leagues, you'll know ahead of time. But a lot of times owners, they don't know what to do. If something weird happens, which always does in those drafts, someone picks a player out of position, someone takes your guy 5 spots before, they start panicking. What do? You always have to have an alternative plan, a backup plan. And I have backup plans to my backup plans to my backup plans. And so that is how on draft day I stay cool, calm, and I always have a solid draft. One thing that me and the villain in the glasses up there always had an issue with is because there'll be times when the villain in the glasses has a terrible draft, and he'll agree. I know he's a humble guy. He'll agree. He'll have a bad draft, but somehow, some way, his villainy will steal good players from other people. And that is my weakness, right? That is my weakness. I do not take people for a ride. Now I used to. Okay. Starks. Right. I know. I used to.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But after I saw the villain in the glasses, what it created, right? I didn't like it, so I stopped doing it. But to be honest, it's almost a necessary evil, right? Taking people for a ride, because sometimes a lot of times those people don't really understand. They're not. They don't understand what they're doing, and that's what is hard for me. Like some of the people Starks or even I've taken a ride for, they think they're doing something good, right? But you've done such a good job selling your pitch. And you know what you're doing, but they have no idea. And then 2 weeks down the line, they look at you. It's the look, that they give you when you got their players, and the players you gave them, like Luis Scola. And they're looking at their team. They're like, why do I have Luis Scola on my team? And I'm grinning from ear to ear with John Wall and a couple other assets that are, just killing it. And,
man.
Yeah. But it is a necessary evil, so I should take people for more of a ride more often. And that's just something I'm going to be actually working on moving forward. So I'm going to pass the rock over to Starks.
You guys put some good points up. I'm actually, LT, I'm glad that I was waiting for you to say that. I will always say this. You are a very good drafter, man. And you've already said my weakness. I'm not the best drafter when it comes to leagues. There's a cheat code right there. That's my weakness. I draft okay, right? But let me also say this. As soon as Jacob came around, he's probably seen me trade in a dynasty league, but he hasn't really seen me trade. I haven't traded, to be honest with you, ever since that dynasty league, Jacob. That goes with fantasy baseball. This redraft leagues that we're in. I'm sure you noticed that LT football. I haven't did a draft. So the thing is, I'm getting more of a rush off of getting the next guy up in the waiver wire. I love to get the gem before someone else. That's what I really, as you laughed on LT, prefacize on someone like Kendrick Nunn that I jumped on earlier before a lot of people, right? So,
you did.
And I just missed on Devontae Graham. I almost got him, but I just missed. So that would have been another guy I would have hit on. But let me say this. When it comes to my strengths, as LT had mentioned, I'm pretty good at trading. If you guys when I first started this podcast, I was a bill collector, right? So someone I would call on a phone, they owed on a credit card, and a lot of my strengths came from that, right? And the funny thing is, I'm not even a talker, right? I'm almost essentially timid. I don't really talk too much, but it's funny because when I'm podcasting, I got my face out there now and I'm on the phones. It's a little bit different. I get into myself and I'm comfortable. So as I told you the story about credit cards, I look at it like this. I look at it from a perspective from another individual. I've taken a lot of, door shuts in front of my face, a lot of hangups, a lot of text messages like, no, just because I've been good at successfully completing trades, let's not forget of how many declines that I've got over the years, right? So I've got several of them. But the difference is when it came to trading, yes, it did help my team out. I mean, one of the easiest trade, here's your cheat code for tonight. One of the easiest trade techniques is just like how Jacob and LT was tag teaming me, handicap match. I loved it. Norman Powell, how they were talking him up, and he's right there on the front page with the Yoshi behind there. I could say it like this, man. If anybody here, you could juice the orange on Norman Powell right now, and you could take someone for a ride with what he's doing right now, if you wanted to. Right? Because he's not a sustainable player for what he's doing. He could be, but I don't think so. I always look at the likelihood of a player of what is his chances to be that well. But going back to like my weakness when it comes to drafts, I get a little bit aggressive when it comes to the middle round type players, right? And that's where I can basically fall down on. But the thing is, the risk that I take is very minimal. That's why like I said, I'm going to eat my crow on DSJ. But the thing is about that, I didn't pay a high premium on it, so I can eat that, right? He was ranked ADP 200 in Yahoo, so it doesn't really hurt me. As many, people will get on my back about it, that's fine. And especially, I'm going to tell you to a listener that as an expert too, that tries to what am I trying to say? He's a wise GM and a wise expert, but he's disrespecting me with trade offers right now, and I think it's because he's trying to be funny with the DSJ because he knows I was like big on him before the season started. And also Miles Turner, he's been trying to send me trades on him. I won't take no offense to that. I think it's very laughable, right? Because once I start doing offering trades, then it's a big deal because whenever I do offers, it goes like, as Lewis said like this, let me just kind of break it down like this. When I do trades, it's like a bomb explosion. When someone else does a trade, it's not that loud. Because people are so accustomed of me doing like taking people for rides. So I've been laying low, but as I have the glasses, I'm the villain in glasses. Maybe I might start getting back out there to make trades. But honestly, I could. Do I want to? Secretly, I do. But am I going to do, or am I going to do it? I don't know. We'll see. But like I said, I think what I'm going to juice the orange on, I want to just find the next player in the free agency. But yeah, my drafts are just okay. So I'll leave it there. So we'll kind of go into the fourth quarter timekeeper. What's our time looking at? We had an hour there.
Yeah, we're right under an hour.
All right. So clutch shot. Real quick on the commercial, you guys make sure you check out the YouTube channel, New Life Fantasy, that LT is putting the hard work on. He's doing a lovely job with the clip arts. The thumbnails is what they call on YouTube. I'm so old school. I'm just now catching up with that. So make sure you subscribe, that Sub-Zero, that button there. Hit the bell. It's dinner time. Make sure you comment below. Make sure you give us a thumbs up. It definitely helps us out. We want to hit to that 100 subscribers because LT wants to give me that match. And 2K back in the day, we were rivals. I mean, we're still rivals now that we went back and forth on 2K. He'll probably bust me up. I'll be honest with you. I'm sure he will. So help us out there, guys. Yeah.
I haven't played that game.
And then I don't want to hear you still blast me up. So, and then make sure you guys on Take a Ride podcast, subscribe, help us out. And even on the YouTube, tell your friends to hit that Sub-Zero button, subscribe. And then obviously newlifefantasy.com. We're coming out the Christmas articles there. That LT the Sage. Yeah, whenever that article, the Sage Eyes, is coming out. And then the Silent Night with a K that Jacob is going to be working on. That's going to be beautiful, man. And then the Dynasty Fighter that I'm reviving, it was called Fantasy Combat that I did last year. So the Dynasty Fighter, what it's going to be consisted of, it's going to be more Dynasty based. I did it as a fun factor, but it's going to be more analytical, a little bit more, because it's going to be a player versus player, and who would you rather have in the Dynasty format? So, Jacob, let me ask you this real quick. Who do you think the player that I'm going to draw up for a Dynasty Fighter for the Christmas season there, brother?
You know, the first thing I thought of is that you're probably gonna add my boy Luca in there. No? Maybe Luca.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, he's gonna be on there. He's gonna be on there. I do it for you, and then obviously that's what the people want. Everybody's hyped about Luka, and it's well deserved. He's killing it this year. And the clutch shot, I guess I'll just kind of keep that as my clutch shot, because I know there's games going on. I know where the time is coming a little bit slim there, but I'll pass you the ball there, Jacob. Is there a game you want to talk about, or if there's any other things you want to say in the clutch shot there, brother?
No, yeah, absolutely. So if we could go to the Rockets game real quick. The Rockets lost a close game to the Kings, and I wanted to bring up a player, Ben McLemore. I know he's extremely boring, and it's extremely why is he still in the league? But the Rockets ran a seven-man rotation tonight. Basically gave 6 players over 30 minutes here, well over 30 minutes, which is insane. But Ben McLemore, he shot the ball 13 times. All 13 shots were 3-pointers. So he is vastly underowned. I get it. The field goal percentage isn't going to be there. But if you need threes, he's your guy, because the Rockets currently don't have Eric Gordon, who usually has that spot. So he is basically the Eric Gordon of this team until Gordon gets back, which isn't for another 2 to 3 weeks. So if you need some threes and some lucky stats, I mean, he also had 4 boards, 4 assists, and 2 blocks. So if you need some other lucky stats, but mainly threes, definitely give him a look in any size league, because he's hitting 3 to 4 to 5 3-pointers a game, which is nothing to sniff at. So that's my clutch shot. A little boring, but definitely, like we were talking about earlier, a consistent guy who's going to get you consistent threes. That's what you want if you are in need of threes, or if you need to stream it. That's my clutch shot.
Nice. I like it. Yeah, he definitely did take 13 snipes tonight on that tight rotation, as LT always talks about. That's important in fantasy. LT, you have a clutch shot there, brother?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put a quick I'm going to have to give some love to your guy, Starks. I'm going to have to give love to him. He does it again in Orlando. They did lose the game to Milwaukee, but Jonathan Isaac with 5 blocks tonight. 5
Good Lord.
blocks. I mean,
Cinco.
It's not even May. I don't know.
It's not even Ocho either.
I don't want to say it. Is this sustainable? Can he keep doing this? I don't want to say it, and I know we've been saying that he can't, but man, he still is. He still is. And then Aaron Gordon, he's 3 for 12, 10 points, 13 rebounds, 1 steal, 1 block, and Farina. These guys here in Orlando, and I want to just talk about Orlando in general. Some of these guys that you're investing in Orlando is bringing back some decent value for you. Farina in points leagues, he's bringing back pretty good value for you. A recent pickup that the White Knight has talked about, Ricky Ross, Terrence Ross is who I'm talking about. Push it to the limit. He's pushing it to the limit the last couple of games with
Ride that wave.
There you go. Ride that wave. 4 snipes tonight, 4 rebounds, no stock stats. That's why he's a points league dandy with 23. And then that's even without Vooch that's going to be coming back. But even when Vooch comes back, that just means chemical Birch is going to be going back to the bench. That's it. All these other guys that are producing and getting minutes are still going to be there. So I like Orlando. Their rotations and everything else seem pretty solid so far. I wasn't a believer in Isaac earlier in the year, but he's showing me.
I don't think Jacob was either.
He's showing me that
you convinced me on him, Starks. I traded for him in a Dynasty League, and I'm happy. Thank you for that.
Nice. No problem.
5 blocks. Crazy. Over to you, Starks.
5 blocks.
Let me add on to that. If you don't mind, on Isaac, I'll pass you the ball right back to you, Starks. Just really quick, Isaac hasn't had a game where he didn't have a block. He's had a block in every single game so far this year.
Wow.
Back to you, Starks.
Nice call. Woo. That
right.
Hey, if someone can search it as I speak, if you guys can hit the average on how many blocks, including this game, he is having this season, that would be excellent. If not, it's okay. Yeah, but I'll take a quick 2 quick ones real quick because I know we're closing up shop here. So there was a listener that was feeling good about, Anthony Davis, and I love Anthony Davis. Okay, I'm not throwing shade at Anthony Davis. I love him like the next person. I've always said he's a potential number 1 guy, but always what I'm concerned about is the injury history with him. And so the listener was like, "This is man, this Anthony Davis. I don't know why people are talking about Towns as number 1." Well, it's just because of the consistency, man. Consistency is key, and there's a good chance that he'll be. Exactly. There's a good chance as an Iron Man, he's going to be there and available for you. Anthony Davis is obviously the better talent, but when has he doesn't always play 70-plus games. Now, recently, he's been looking a little bit better. I'll give him that. But let's look at it last year. You're going to be like, well, Starks, to be fair, last year was a whole odd situation because, they were benching him because he was in the Pelicans, right? So he was struggling with that load management and people were kicking themselves, right? So what I say is you got to wait till the season plays out because everybody can formulate to be the top player. But Towns, I think, is just the consistent basis here that I like about himself. And I'll say that, but I'll also say this about, as you called him, was it Dandruff for Blake? Is that right, LT? How you call him?
Dandruff.
Blake Dandruff. Blake. So I'll just go ahead and talk about Blake real quick. He had Blake Dandruff. He had a poor outing. What? He had a poor outing here today. I think he was like 1 for 9, and I was just saying, like, man, I don't want him. I'm sorry. Like, okay, he's still decent, okay, but someone had asked me this, like, Starks. I want to trade. They were saying I want to trade either Terry Rozier or I want to trade Devontae Graham for Blake. No, don't do that. No. You just don't do that. And I know it was like, well, I need a big man, and that's different. But I would still say no. Don't do it. Just don't do it. I get it, man. Yes, you can do better. If you need a big, please go for a different big man. I cannot take that. Like, I'm sorry, Blake Griffin. What are you, 1 for 9? Missed all your 3-point shots, 4 rebounds, assist? Like, 1 assist? He played 34 minutes. Go ahead, LT.
I was going to say, he doesn't even play like a big man anymore. That's the issue with it. So that's the thing. Like, he plays, this is, sorry to say this even because he's on my team, but he plays like Melo, right? He's like a Melo-ish player now where he's like shooting threes. He's just jacking up shots. He doesn't play like a big man. So if you're looking for a big man, make sure you're getting a big man. He's there for blocks. He's there for rebounds. Griffin, I know you're trying to do a quick cheat code, listener, to try to get some points production and some spectacular stats with your big man stats. I get it. But if you really need just a big man, find a pure big man. Holmes on Holmes is a good one there. Holmes on I hate to say it. Holmes on Holmes. Rashawn Holmes is cheat code. Someone that you may want to look at. Someone who doesn't believe he'll keep this up the rest of the season once that team gets fully healthy. So just someone to think there. Or if you're looking for a high productive point guard, you can always go scroll down here and go to Derrick Rose, who was 9 for 17. 2 free throws, 7 assists, 1 block. Yep, you knew it was happening. 21 points.
He also hit the game-winning shot.
He also, white knight. Man,
yep.
I knew you were my favorite.
He says, I'm born to do this. And then, I'm born to do this stuff.
Hey, I wonder what the pizza guy did tonight. Oh, wait.
Ooh.
Let's check the pizza guy real quick.
Let's check our scores. You know what? Rival. Let's check out. I think we're playing this week in the redraft league. Let's check out that score. Real quick.
Man, in the redraft league.
Yeah, let's check. That's the 10-year anniversary. Let's check it out.
Hey, that league, I am doing scoop in that league.
Hey, I don't want to hear. You might be beating me. Let's find out.
No way.
How'd you get me, Starks? Last week I was up 7-2 on Sunday, and you beat me 5-4. How did that happen?
It must have been a trade I did, right? No,
Starks, yeah, right. Starks, man.
Cutting coupons. Here he goes.
I slowly.
Yeah, my rebounds are scoop. I feel like I have like 16. Irving. That's who's hurting. Oh, and for some odd reason, my Lowry switch over to the main wheel didn't go through, so that's sweet. But
oh man,
I'm gonna switch Lowry with Kyrie. But yeah, Kyrie's killing me in this league. And there he goes, Derrick Rose. Omari Spellman, no points. Oh, first quarter, okay.
Why would you do? Wait a minute. What are you doing deploying Amari Spellman again? What the heck is wrong with you, LP?
Listen, I was trying to look for big man.
You're desperate. You're desperate.
I feel that, dude. It's a deep league.
This league is ridiculous. This is the most ridiculous league I've ever been. One of the most ridiculous leagues I've ever been in. Look at my big men, listeners. Look at them. Omari Spellman. Yes. Yeah. We're starting with that. Draymond Green, because he's not going to shut it down later in the year. Zubac. Zubac is like my best big guy. Baines came back tonight, but guess what? He probably lost his starting gig now. Perfect. Yeah. And then the thesis, Korkmaz. Not Korkmaz. Sorry, just kidding. Biombo?
Yeah, he did.
I have nobody, and I keep looking for big men, and they're never there. And then didn't you take Looney in this one? This is the league you took Looney because I was trying to.
I think I could. Oh, I've been stashing him too. Like he's not even doing that.
Yeah, Looney. Yeah, exactly. Looney Tunes.
He's there.
Chemical. Oh man. Yeah. So you're beating me right now. We'll see what happens. Why are we? Tied in blocks. How? Okay, go ahead.
It is the last thing, man. Are you able to check my rating? I don't know if you're able to do that or not.
Stars.
Let's see what's happening.
Diamond.
Okay.
Diamond rating.
Oh man.
Look at that. That's pretty.
Make sure that was right.
That's pretty, man.
Thanks, man. That's no problem, man. It's going to start coming down though. I can't focus on the leagues as hard as I used to. But as long as I can try to squeeze out a win against you, it's all worth it, right? So, listeners, we love you. Oh, yeah, Jacob, I did squeeze out. Did I squeeze a win or did we tie? I can't remember last week.
You got the win, buddy, 5-4. I was super surprised. I was about to go to bed, a winner. I was good. Up 7-2, and I lose 4-5. I was like, whoa, what? Starks, man, you got some magic powers, bro.
Hey man, that's payback for the points league after I couldn't make moves. Thanks a lot there, White Knight.
Calculated.
Huh? Wait. Yeah. All right. So listeners, we love you guys. God bless you. Oh, so you can find me on my Twitter handle. It's @Starks_industry. You can also find me on Instagram, OneClosingHero. Give me a follow. Ask me a question. I'll get back to you at a prompt time. Jacob, where can they find you at there, brother?
You can find me on Twitter @Ain'tDoneYet, and done is spelled DUNNE. I'd love for you guys to follow me. I'll follow back and ask me any questions. God bless you guys.
Where can I find you out there?
Thanks, man. They can find me at Instagram _Sage Network _ and on Twitter at Sage Network X. I'm gonna follow me and I'll follow you. Over to you, Starks.
What?
Follow me, and I'll follow you.
So, listeners, we love you. God bless you. With that being said, have a good evening, morning, afternoon, and take a ride.